The hum of the tracks had always been my lullaby, a constant rumble beneath Stockholm's bustling streets. But that night, it turned into a whisper of doom. I'd been working the graveyard shift for SL, the Metro Authority, for over a decade, crawling through the tunnels like a rat in the underbelly of the city. It was around 2 a.m. when I first saw it, a gleam of silver slicing through the darkness of the Blue Line tunnel, headlights piercing the gloom like accusing eyes. I froze, my flashlight trembling in my grip, as the train slowed to a halt at the platform of an abandoned station I'd only heard whispers about. Kimling. The doors hissed open, revealing rows of pale faces staring blankly ahead, and in that moment, I knew the legends were true. The Silverpilen wasn't just a story, it was waiting for me. Little did I know, stepping aboard would trap me in a nightmare where time twisted and the dead rode forever. My name's Eric Larson, and I've spent half my life underground, maintaining the Stockholm Metro. Born and raised in Södermalm, I took the job after my construction gig dried up. Steady pay, no questions asked. Just me, my tools, and the endless maze of tracks. The Metro's a beast. Over 100 kilometers of tunnels, stations like Slussen buzzing with life by day. But at night, it's a different world. Echoing drips, flickering emergency lights, the occasional rat scurrying across the rails. I'd heard the tales from old-timers in the break room, nursing thermoses of black coffee, the Silverpilen, the ghost train that haunts the lines. They said it was a relic from the 60s, an experimental C5 model, aluminum body left unpainted, shining like a specter amid the green cars. Built by Hägglunds as a cheap prototype, it was meant to test efficiency, doors that slid outward for more passengers, bare interiors without ads or graffiti. But folks hated it, called it dystopian, avoided it like the plague. It ran sporadically as backup during rush hours, appearing without warning, then vanished into depots. By the 90s, they scrapped most of them, but legends don't die easy. Why was I down there that night? A routine inspection on the Blue Line, reports of flickering signals near Hollenbergen. The air was thick with the scent of ozone and rust, the kind that clings to your skin. I never believed the stories until they became my own. The Blue Lines always felt off to me, snaking through the suburbs with its long, dim tunnels. I'd start my shift at T-Centralen, the heart of the system, crowds thinning as midnight approached, leaving only drunks and night owls. By 1 a.m., platforms empty, the last trains groaning to a stop. I'd suit up in my orange vest, grab my toolkit, and descend into the access tunnels, the world above forgotten. That night the signals were fine, no shorts, no glitches, but a chill settled in, unnatural for August. The current date was creeping toward dawn, but time felt stretched. I radioed base. Eric here, Blue Line clear so far. Static answered, then a faint whisper, like wind through cracks. Silverpilen. I shook it off as interference, but my skin prickled. Old Bengt, retired now, had spun yarns about the train, how it appeared after hours, clean and gleaming, no dust despite the years. It picks up the lost, he'd say, eyes distant, souls who missed their stop in life. I'd laugh, but alone in the tunnels, doubt crept in. The Metro's full of ghosts, forgotten stations like Kimlinge, built in the 70s for a planned suburb that never came. It's there on the maps, between Hollenbergen and Kista, but sealed off, tracks bypassed, a concrete tomb in the nature preserve. Locals say, bara de döda stiger av I Kymlinge. Only the dead get off at Kymlinge. I never went near it, until that night. I was walking the tracks, boots crunching gravel, when the rumble started, not the usual freight vibration, but something smoother, almost silent. My flashlight caught a glint ahead, silver rails curving into shadow. Then the headlights. Two pale beams emerging from the dark, the train materializing like fog. It was the C5, unmistakable. 8 cars, aluminum body shining unnaturally. No graffiti, no wear. It shouldn't be there. Those were scrapped decades ago. I backed against the wall, heart slamming, as it glided to a stop at a platform I didn't recognize. Dim, overgrown with vines peeking through cracks. Signs faded to Kimlinge. The doors slid open with a hiss, outward like arms reaching. Inside, the cars were lit with a cold fluorescence, seats occupied by figures, dozens of them still as statues, faces pale, eyes vacant. Some looked like everyday folk, a woman in a dated coat, a man with a briefcase, but their expressions, empty like shells. A faint mumble rose from them, incoherent words overlapping. Valora, Evit, home, lost, forever. I radioed again, frantic. Base, emergency, unknown train at Kimlinga. More static, then a chuckle, low, guttural, not human. The doors waited, inviting. I should have run, but a pull gripped me, like the train whispered my name. Against every instinct, I stepped aboard. That was my undoing. The doors closed behind me with a finality that echoed like a coffin lid. The train lurched forward, smooth and silent, plunging into the tunnel. No conductor, no announcements, just the hum of rails and that mumble growing louder. I gripped a pole, scanning the passengers. A young girl clutching a doll, her dress from the 70s. An old man in a suit, newspaper dated 1965, folded on his lap. Their eyes followed me, milky and unblinking, but they didn't move. The air was stale, scented with decay, faint rot beneath the metallic tang. I banged on the doors. Let me out! No response. The train accelerated, lights flickering outside, but the stations blurred. Slusen, Gamla Stan. Impossible. We were on the blue line. Time stretched. My watch stopped at 2:17 a.m. Panic rose as the mumbles formed words. Join us! Ride forever! One passenger turned, a woman with hollow cheeks. I boarded in 68, never got off. Her voice was a rasp, skin cracking like old leather. I recoiled, stumbling into another car. More of them, expressionless, trapped in limbo. Legends flashed, stories of folks vanishing after late-night rides, found weeks later wandering, aged beyond years, babbling about a silver train, or never found at all, their names in missing persons files. Was this it? The Silverpilen's curse? The train dove deeper, tunnels narrowing, walls slick with moisture. Graffiti appeared outside, faded warnings. Ut ur Silverpilen. Get out of the Silver Arrow. I pounded the emergency brake. Nothing. A shadow moved in the next car, a figure, tall and faceless, gliding between seats. The passengers stirred, mumbling, rising to a chant. Kimlinga, Dedoda. The dead. My mind raced. Bengt had said the train was cursed from the start, built cheap, tested during strikes, rumors of accidents in the depots, workers vanishing. One tale, a driver in 75 saw it in the mirrors, empty but for ghosts, crashed his own train in panic. Another, a girl in the 80s boarded by mistake, emerged months later at Kimlinga, insane, claiming time looped endlessly. The air grew colder, breath fogging as the faceless shadow approached, its form shifting like smoke. You saw us, it whispered, voice a chorus. Now you ride. I screamed, but sound died in my throat. The train slowed, doors opening to Kimlinga again, but different. Platforms crumbling, vines choking the lights. Passengers rose, shuffling out like zombies, dissolving into mist. I bolted, leaping the gap, rolling on the platform as the doors shut. The train vanished into the tunnel, leaving silence. I clawed my way up emergency stairs, emerging into dawn light. Stockholm above, birds chirping, people rushing to work. My radio crackled. Eric, where have you been? Shift ended hours ago. Hours? My watch still read 2:17, but the sun said otherwise. I checked my phone. Weeks had passed. Missing posters with my face plastered the stations. Eric Larson, last seen on Blue Line. Family thought I'd vanished. I stumbled home, but the nightmare clung. Mirrors show shadows behind me, silver gleams in the corner of my eye. At night I hear the rumble under the floor, mumbling voices calling. I quit SL, but the metro pulls me back. Last week I rode the Blue Line late, saw a flash of silver in the tunnel. The twist. Checking records, I found my name in old files. A worker vanished in 65 during the C5 tests. Same face, same birth date. Was I always on that train, looping through time? If you're in Stockholm, avoid the metro after dark. The Silverpilen's real, and once it finds you, you never truly get off. The dead don't disembark, and neither do the living. The wind howled like a banshee that night, whipping across the firth of Tay. carrying the salty tang of the sea and something fouler, decay perhaps, or the echo of old blood. It was December 28th, 2024, the anniversary, and I was out on the bridge alone with my regrets and a flask of whiskey to numb the cold. I'd heard the stories all my life, growing up in Dundee, but I never believed them until the clattering started. A rhythmic thunder of wheels on rails, faint at first, then building like a storm. I froze on the walkway, peering into the fog-shrouded darkness where the old bridge stumps jutted from the water like broken teeth. The sound grew louder, accompanied by a low whistle, and then the screams, piercing, desperate, cutting through the gale. That's when I knew the phantom train was real, reliving its plunge into the abyss. But as it vanished into the night, leaving only silence and my pounding heart, I realized the horror wasn't just the ghost. It was me, tied to that cursed night in 1879, doomed to confess what I've buried for years. My name's Alistair Mackenzie, and I've lived in the shadow of the Tay Bridge my whole life. Born in Dundee in 1980, I grew up hearing tales from my grandfather, a railway man who worked the lines in the 50s. The bridge, the new one, built in 1887 after the disaster, is a marvel, spanning 2 miles across the Firth, connecting Dundee to Wormit in Fife. By day, it's bustling with trains and cars on the nearby road bridge, the water below sparkling under the Scottish sun. But at night, especially in winter, it's isolated, eerie, a ribbon of steel suspended over black depths, fog rolling in from the North Sea like a shroud. The old bridge's remnants are still there, parallel to the new one, their iron girders rusted and twisted, a grim reminder. Why was I out there that night? I'm a maintenance engineer for Network Rail, tasked with inspecting the structure, checking for corrosion, loose bolts, the endless battle against salt and wind. But truthfully, I was drawn by guilt. My family history is tangled with the disaster. My great-great-grandfather was Thomas Boach, the engineer who designed the first bridge. His name's a curse in these parts, blamed for the deaths. I've spent years avoiding the anniversary, but this time something pulled me. Whispers in the wind, dreams of falling. I parked my van at the Dundee end, bundled in my high-vis jacket, and walked out, the bridge vibrating faintly under my boots from distant traffic. The air was biting, carrying the scent of brine and diesel, the fog so thick I could barely see 10 feet ahead. That's when the clattering began, and my world unraveled. I'd always dismissed the legends as folklore, the kind Scots spin over pints in pubs like the Phoenix in Dundee. The Tay Bridge disaster happened on December 28, 1879, during one of the worst gales in history. The bridge, opened just 18 months earlier, was the longest in the world at the time, over 2 miles of wrought iron and cast iron, supported by 85 piers. Boach designed it on the cheap, using lattice girders and lugs that proved fatally flawed. That night, the Edinburgh to Dundee train, North British Railway number 224, a sturdy 4-4 Nero locomotive, pulling 6 carriages, left Burntisland at 5:20 p.m., carrying about 75 souls, passengers from all walks, crew, even a theater troupe heading home for the holidays. The storm raged, winds gusting over 80 miles, waves crashing against the piers. Signalman Thomas Barclay at the Wormit end watched the train enter the bridge at 7:13 p.m. Midway, over the high girders, the central navigation spans towering 88 feet above the water, a catastrophic failure. The lugs fractured, girders buckled, and the entire middle section collapsed, plunging the train into the icy Firth. No survivors. Only 46 bodies recovered, the rest claimed by the currents. The inquiry blamed Boach. Poor materials, inadequate wind resistance, rushed construction. He died broken-hearted months later. Growing up, Grandpa would recite William McGonagall's awful poem, Beautiful Railway Bridge of the Silvery Tay. Alas, I am very sorry to say that 90 lives have been taken away. We'd laugh, but the chill lingered. I researched it obsessively as a teen, poring over photos of the wreckage, girders twisted like pretzels, the locomotive salvaged from the depths, eerily intact. But the phantom, that was for tourists, until that night. The clattering started subtle, like distant thunder, but it built, vibrating through the bridge's steel into my bones. I stopped midway, the fog swirling around me, the new bridge's lights hazy orbs in the mist. The sound was unmistakable. Wheels on rails, the chuff of steam, even though modern trains are electric. My radio crackled, static at first, then a faint voice. Clear ahead? I fumbled it. Base, this is Mackenzie. You hear that? No response, just more static, laced with what sounded like screams, muffled and far off. I shook my head, blaming the wind, but the knot in my gut tightened. The bridge felt alive, groaning under invisible weight. I edged toward the rail, peering down at the black water, where the old stumps loomed like ghosts. Something flickered, a light, twin beams cutting the fog, approaching from the south. No scheduled trains at 2 a.m. I waved my flashlight, shouting into the gale, but the light grew, accompanied by the clatter, now deafening. Shapes materialized, a locomotive, black and gleaming, pulling carriages with dim lanterns swaying. It wasn't modern, no sleek lines, but Victorian, like number 224, steam billowing despite the impossibility. Faces at the windows, pale, indistinct, staring out with hollow eyes. My breath fogged the air, colder now, frost creeping along the rails. This isn't real, I muttered, backing away. But the train thundered closer, the bridge shaking violently. Then, midway, over where the high girders once stood, a crack, like thunder, and the screams erupted, raw and terrified, echoing across the firth. The train tilted, carriages buckling, and plunged sideways into the void, vanishing into the fog with a splash that never came. Silence rushed in, broken only by my ragged breaths. But that was just the beginning. The real horror was what followed me home. Shaken, I stumbled back to my van, hands trembling on the wheel as I drove into Dundee. The city was asleep, streets slick with rain, the Christmas lights still twinkling mockingly. I parked outside my flat on Perth Road, a cramped place overlooking the Firth, and poured another whiskey, trying to rationalize. Hallucination, fatigue. I'd been working doubles, the anniversary weighing heavy, but the dream started that night, vivid, suffocating. I was on the train, strapped in a carriage with strangers, a woman clutching a child, a man in a top hat reading a newspaper dated 1879. The storm raged outside, wind howling, the bridge creaking. Then the lurch, the snap of metal, and the fall, endless, into freezing water, lungs burning as screams filled my ears. I'd wake gasping, sheets soaked, the clattering fading in my mind. Days blurred, I called in sick, researched more. Online forums buzzed with sightings. A fisherman in 1995 hearing screams on the anniversary, a driver on the road bridge in 2010, seeing lights plunge into the water. Haunted Scotland sites detailed apparitions, the train appearing at 7:15 p.m., reliving the exact moment. Some claimed Bouch's ghost wandered the stumps, muttering calculations. My family's tie gnawed at me. Bouch's disgrace ruined us. Ancestors changed names, fled south. Was this curse? Guilt for his sins? I avoided the bridge, but the whispers followed. In the wind through my window, on my phone's static calls at odd hours. 90 lives. McGonagall's words twisted. The escalation came a week later, December's end drawing near, but the anniversary felt eternal. I ventured out at dusk, drawn back to the bridge like a moth to flame. The fog was thicker, the Firth a churning black mirror. I walked the length, flashlight cutting swathes, the old stumps closer now, accessible by a maintenance path. I descended to the water's edge, boots sinking in mud, the scent of rot overwhelming. There, amid the rusted piers, I found it, a fragment of wreckage, impossible after 145 years, a brass nameplate, NBR 224, half buried. As I touched it, the clattering returned, louder, vibrating the ground. I spun. The phantom train barreled across the invisible old line, lights blazing. This time it stopped, doors creaking open, steam hissing. Faces beckoned. My grandfather's among them, though he died in 92. "Join us, Alistair," they murmured, voices overlapping like waves. Panic surged. I ran, but the path twisted, leading me onto the phantom rails. The train lurched forward, carrying me over the void. Inside, the passengers turned, victims of 1879, clothes sodden, eyes pleading. "Your blood built this," one rasped, a engineer with Bush's face. The bridge groaned, wind battering, and we fell. Endless plunge, water rushing up. But I awoke on the bank, dawn breaking, the nameplate gone. Bruises marked my arms, like hands had gripped me. The confrontation built over nights, the phantom invading my life. Whispers in mirrors, shadows on walls mimicking the train's shape. I confided in a local historian, old Mrs. Fraser in Wormet, who knew the lore. "The Tay claims its due," she said, eyes sharp. Fear and guilt feed it. Bouch's folly wasn't just iron, it was hubris, ignoring the Firth's wrath. She showed me diaries from survivors' families. None survived, but rescuers heard screams for days after, phantom echoes. One diver, recovering bodies, claimed the locomotive's boiler still thrummed, alive. I returned to the bridge on January 1st, armed with resolve, and a sledgehammer, absurdly, to smash the stumps. The fog enveloped me, the clattering immediate. The train appeared, but this time I boarded willingly, confronting the specter. Carriages filled with the dead, their stories spilling, a mother losing her child, a lover heading home. At the center, Bouch, my kin, chained to the controls. "I built on sand," he wept. "Your denial keeps us here." The fall came, but I screamed defiance. "It's over!" Waking on the bridge, the fog lifted, silence profound. But the twist chilled me deepest. Checking records, I found my name in the passenger manifest. A. Mackenzie, lost in 1879. Reincarnation? Curse? I quit my job, moved inland. But every December 28th, the clattering calls. The Tay never forgets, and neither do I. If you're near the bridge on that night, turn back. The phantom rides, and it might claim you too.